It's Lael Konkar with Lael by Mail. In this free class, we are going to go through an introduction to creative listing, where you'll discover the magic of creative listing, a fun, approachable way to document your life one list at a time. We'll dive into simple prompts to help you capture memories, reflect, and get creative with your storytelling. Let's get started. One of the biggest questions I get when it comes to creative listing is, where in the world do I start? I don't know how to start. I don't know how to start. Lael, please help me where I start. So in class today, we'll talk about some easy, meaningful prompts to help you get started with your creative listing. We'll discover how creative listing can help you reflect, remember, and tell your unique story. The most important part from my perspective, as you are going through class and as you are also contemplating how you want to work creative listing into your crafty endeavors, is that you do you. There are no rules. There are no regulations. There's no listing police. So no one is going to tell you that you did it wrong, or no one should tell you that you did it wrong. I just want you to keep in mind, you are doing this for you. So you figure out what works for you and you go with it from there. I have been a list maker pretty much for all of my life. If you think about it, we all are list makers. We've all been listing in one form or another since we were young, right? Spelling lists, to-do list. Maybe our parents were giving us a list of chores that we had to do during the summer. You may have had a Christmas list. Maybe you wrote a letter to Santa of things that you wanted for Christmas, list style. So really, many of us have been listing for quite a while. For me, where I really noticed it starting was probably when I first started my career. I had career in software, career with a cellular phone company, but where I really started documenting things and list format was when my husband Nick and I were engaged and when we were getting married. So what you see here is a list of people that were invited to our wedding. And yes, I still own this list. I had saved it. You're going to think I'm crazy here in a minute, but I save a lot of my lists. So always a list maker, but it's really fun when you go back and look at some of these lists, right? They really start to tell a story. Back in 2015, I stumbled across an individual by the name of Corey Speaker. She's also known as the Reset Girl. And this is when I really started changing kind of the formats of my list. Whereas in the past, my entire life, I had been listing functionally, right? I was making lists like we saw before, people that were invited to our wedding. In my career, I was making lists, so I would make sure to remember things. Sometimes you got so many things in your head that you just need to get it on paper. But in 2015, I discovered Corey, the Reset Girl. She had just introduced something called Listers Got a List, and it was amazing. It's like I found my calling. It was basically, she was putting out prompts every month where you could just take those listing prompts and make a list. And you got to be creative with that list. You got to decide what list you wanted to do, what lists you didn't want to do, what products you wanted to do as you were doing those lists. So kind of started in my career, started as wedding planning, and then moved into creative listing via Listers Got a List. And I did Listers Got a List for a solid 3 months. I did it every single day. And those are still some of my most cherished lists because they tell a story. So basically we moved from 2015 into 2020 and specifically March of 2020 when the pandemic hit. So kind of an interesting little story. Pandemic hit on a Monday. And a Wednesday, I live in Utah, Wednesday we had an earthquake. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. That Wednesday, I was stressed and anxious like, the majority of the world. And I thought to myself, what in the world could I do to, number one, take my mind off of all the turmoil and uncertainty that's happening right now in our world? But number two, what could I do to give something back to the crafting community that I have been a part of for so long? So I kind of thought about it for a while and I thought, you know what? I know a lot about Traveler's Notebooks and I'm incredibly passionate about Traveler's Notebooks. I thought I'm going to do a free class. So I set out that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in putting together a free class, and that Saturday I put up the first of many listing classes. That one in particular had to do with an intro to Traveler's Notebooks. I loved creating that first class so much that I did another one the following week, and another one the following week, and another one the following week. And I found that it gave me something to look forward to every week, especially during those early days of the pandemic. I also found that other people around the world were also very much enjoying that. We were all coming together on Saturday morning and we were socializing via YouTube. We were engaging, we were being creative, and through that started to build a community. So here we are 5 years later, in June of 2025. And would you believe that over the course of that 5 years that all started with the pandemic, I have released not only one, not only two, but 3 Listing with Lael idea books. Those idea books content comes from all of those creative listing sessions that we've been doing on YouTube over the last 5 years. So, what is it about listing that makes me do it? There are a number of different reasons. And yes, I have actually done more than one creative list about why I like to list. I don't know about you guys, but there's something about crossing things off of a list that you have done. It is that dopamine hit, and it just gives you that sense of accomplishment, right? You see your long list, you see things, progression as you're checking things off the list. I even jokingly encourage people, if you are getting out of bed in the morning, put that on your list and check it off. Brushing your teeth, put it on your list, checking it off. Sometimes we just need that visual sense of accomplishment, right? And that little dopamine hit. If you know, you know. I also enjoy listing from a social aspect. So our creative listing on our Saturday listing sessions, it is very much a social, there's a social aspect to it for me. And it was especially evident during the pandemic. But even though pandemic is, in our rearview mirror, it is still very much a social aspect to get together with like-minded people who enjoy crafting and who enjoy creating and who enjoy community and who enjoy creative listing. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but time capsule. Making a list, regardless of whether it's a creative list or a more functional to-do type list, is very much a time capsule. It is a snapshot of a particular point in time. And it's nice to go back and look at that time capsule. When we saw a few minutes ago the list of the people that I had invited to our wedding, that was very much a time capsule of the people that were around and important and relevant to our lives back then. The other thing, it's a brain dump. Sometimes we get so many things floating around in our head that for me, at least, if I can get them on paper, it helps to relieve some of that pressure of all of that information floating around in my head. And it gives me a little bit more of a sense of peace because I'm not worried that I'm going to forget something because I've written it down. Most of all, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, it very much for me has been a creative outlet. And that's what we will really dig into as we start talking about creative listing. Sometimes we don't have hours upon hours upon hours to work on a creative project. I can sit down literally and in 15 minutes, make a creative list, throw on there a stamp or two, piece of washi, a die cut, and call it good. So I am scratching off that creative itch, if you will, by, just spending a few minutes doing a creative list. Whether they're functional lists or creative lists, your lists tell a story. Back in August of 2009, you guys, that is 26 years ago, based on when I'm recording this video today. Back in August of 2009, I put together a mini book that was basically a compilation of a whole bunch of lists. Now, before you start thinking I'm a little wackadoo, let me explain a few things behind here. Like I said, I've been a list maker all of my life. And yes, I have saved a number of those lists. I had saved a number of those lists prior to starting this book in 2009. For example, one of the lists that you see is from 1997, And it is a list of baby names that we were considering as we were getting ready to start our family. So that was definitely a list that I had stashed away somewhere. In 1994, there's another list. When my husband and I were dating, his best friend was dating my best friend, and they wanted to take us away on a surprise getaway. So they sent us a list with a cover letter of the surprise trip. And the list was different things that we should pack. Now, they didn't want us to know where we were going. So it was things on the list ranged from snow boots to a swimsuit and anywhere in between. So I kept that list because that was very much a sentimental list. Also in there, you have a list from 1995 of the people that we were inviting to our rehearsal dinner in 2009. So I had been saving a number of those lists prior to that. In 2009, when I started putting together this mini book, then I started saving lists as I was writing them. So one of those lists, for example, in 2011, we did a family vacation to Cancun, and there was a packing list. So a packing list of things that I needed to make sure that we packed for everyone. So that's just a fun little book that I have continued to add to ever since, really until about maybe the last 10 years when I started doing creative listing. But the way that I set that book up, I set it up in a way that I could add additional lists as I wanted to, either via clipping things in or staples or what have you. So it's just kind of a fun list of lists that I've been collecting over the years. One of the reasons I mentioned that I like to make lists is that they are basically a mini time capsule. They are a snapshot in time of what is happening in your world or what is happening in someone's world around you. Back in 2008, I helped our son Jack, who was 10 at the time, put together an actual time capsule. We were in the process of having the stairs in our home redone, and before the contractor put the tops on the newel posts, I thought it'd be fun for Jack to put together a little time capsule. So that's what we did, and we dropped it in one of the newel posts. So in that little time capsule, as time capsules often have, he had included a letter, who he was, what year it was, and then he included some things about himself. There was a dated newspaper, some Pokemon cards, a few Legos. So he was just kind of talking about who he was and what was happening at that time in his life. We ended that letter by adding my husband's cell phone number, hoping that one day down the road, if someone found that time capsule of Jack's, that they would give us a call and let us know. So here we are in 2025. We still have not heard from anyone, but we imagine that one day in the future, we're hoping that we will get a call, and what a fun phone call that would be. So this is a creative list that I did back in 2024, and it was a list of things that I would put in a time capsule. Time capsules are things that very much change over time. Just as when Jack was 10 years old in 2008, the things he put in a time capsule back then were very different than the things that I would put in my time capsule in 2024. Looking forward, the things that I'd put in a time capsule in 2024 would probably be very different than things that I would put in a time capsule maybe in the year 2040. When our kids were young, I instilled the habit of list making into their lives, sometimes in fun ways, sometimes in ways they didn't necessarily appreciate when I was making them lists of things to do. But the types of lists that they really enjoyed when they were young were making lists of things that they wanted for Christmas. When they were very young, I had them writing letters to Santa, listing what they would like for Christmas. Now, of course, before I mailed those off to Santa, I made sure to make photocopies of them, right? I made photocopies of them to make sure that I would still have a copy of what they were asking, because those lists very much told a story. Talk about little mini time capsules. What's so amazing about that is you see the progression, not only of what they were asking for Christmas over the years, but the progression of their handwriting. When you look at the list on the right, that is one of our son Sam's lists, and it's illegible, right? You can't even read it, but lists very much tell a story. So that was then, and this is now. I'm still their mom. I still am making them write their list of things that they want for Christmas every year because I like to document those things. Now, that list writing progression has definitely changed over the years, especially with technology. So once they started getting into technology, they no longer wanted to write their lists on paper. They wanted to use the Notes app on their cell phones back then, because back then that was pretty much all there was, right? So I have a number of years where I have printed screenshots of their Christmas list from the Notes app. Now what you're seeing, screenshots of the texts that they are sending me. The beauty of the text that they send is then they have links to exactly what they want. So the list making process is still the same, and it's continued to be the same over the course of their lives. Just the format in which they do it has changed from manual on paper now to involving more technology with their phones. But again, very much time capsules, little points in time that tell about them and how old they are, what they're asking for Christmas. You see the progression over the years from toys now to furniture for their homes and so forth. Even things as simple as a grocery list are a snapshot in time and give you a picture of what life is like. The first list back in 2009, one of our grocery lists. Both of the kids were home, right? The kids were young. Some of the items on the list: cereal, kid chips, and Capri Sun. Fast forward to 2021, when Nick and I, my husband and I, are empty nesters. The things on our grocery list at that time quite a bit different from when the kids were young. For example, English cucumbers, arugula, and Cliff Bars. So very much a storytelling scenario there. Also very much a mini time capsule or a snapshot in time. There's really no limit to what you can use for a list topic. On the left, a list that we did back in 2021. And this was a list of things that we say as a family. So list format, I talked a little bit about the different things that my husband says, that I say, that both of our boys say. For example, my husband for years has said, have fun storming the castle when any of us leave the house. If you are a Princess Bride fan, then you know that quote. But in that list, I just expanded a little bit more on that and talked about where that saying, that family saying came from, and then why it's important to us. And then that was one of Nick's sayings. Another one, Nick has been a huge fan of Elvis for years and years and years. And for years, when we were both working outside of the home, he would call me when he was leaving and he would say, Elvis has left the building. If you are an Elvis fan, that may be familiar, way back in the day when Elvis was touring in concerts, an announcer would finally have to come on and say, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left a building, so that the concert attendees would finally leave. They were hoping that he might show up. Another one, Sam, our son Sam, we've always done the I love you more. And on that list, I told that story of a book that I read to him as he was young. Another one, we jokingly will say all done, all done, all done. And that is a story from when Jack was 2.5 and we ended up stuck on a boat. On a bench seat where we were in the middle, and Jack really wanted to be done with the boat ride, and there was nowhere for us to go for 2 hours. So things like that, just a really fun way to document the stories in your family or with your friend group listing style. On the right side is another list that I did in 2022. High school fashion. Now, in some cases, I decide to include a photo with my list, and this one just called for that. So my list is some of the different fashion trends that were taking place when I was in high school, and I thought it appropriate to use one of my high school photos where I was dressed in a Shetland wool teal sweater with a little pony on it, and then a pink Oxford shirt underneath. So Some of your lists may have photos, but they don't have to have photos. Sometimes your photos just help to enhance and tell that story. As I look back at the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, literally more than 500 lists that we've done over the last 5 years during our creative listing sessions on my YouTube channel, I get so much joy from looking at all of those lists because those lists have told stories about myself and our family that most people probably don't know, including members of my own family. I can only hope that one day in the future, someone will get a hold of my creative listing traveler's notebooks and learn so much about me. That to me is where the power of creative listing really comes into play. It is so powerful that it tells a story, and it tells a story, gives you a format to tell a story in a very easy and approachable way. As I mentioned, there are many reasons why I like to list. On the left, you'll see a list that I made when we were building our current home. It is not pretty, right? There's chicken scratches. It's a very functional list, but it tells a story of that process that we were going through when we were building our home. And I can go back to that traveler's notebook insert and I can relive that entire process. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you have ever built a home, you know what I mean by that. But very functional. Your list making can continue to be very functional without having to be decorative, and it still tells a story. On the right, this is I love sharing this story. This is not a list of my own. This is a list that someone shared to me at the end of a workshop that I taught at Pinners Conference in Minnesota. Oh my gosh, probably 8 or 9 years ago. The end of the workshop, a mother-daughter approached me after class and said, "We loved class. We are avid list makers, and we would like to show you some of our lists. Would that be okay?" And I said, "Of course." So the daughter showed me this list, and she was very much an avid bachelorette fan. She had a list going in her bullet journal for that season's bachelorette, where she was keeping track of who was being voted off, not given a rose. So she had gone to the internet, downloaded small images of each of the bachelors, and had listed them in her traveler's notebook and then was crossing them off throughout the process. So it doesn't matter if you are making functional lists for a purpose. It doesn't matter if you are making creative lists for fun. The fact that you are making a list is what matters. All right. So this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. You've been watching and listening and you're like, okay, Lael, okay. Let's really get on with it. What do I need? How do I get started? And basically, there are only two things that you need. You need something to write with and something to write on. That's it. Something to write with, something to write on. From there, you can decide what additional materials you want to use, what supplies you want to use, what types of lists that you want to use. But to get started, grab something to write with, grab something to write on, and you are well on your way. As you're getting started, the first myth that we need to bust right off the bat is that your lists have to be done chronologically. Remember what I said earlier? There are no rules. You don't have to do your list chronological. I certainly haven't. If I, at the onset, decided that my list needed to be chronological, honestly, I don't know that I ever would have gotten started, because where do you start? Do you start things you remember as a child? Do you start what you wanted to be when you grew up, back then or now? Your lists don't have to be chronological. So you're going to pick a list and you are going to get started. This list that we did back in 2021 was my favorite Saturday morning cartoons. And talk about a blast from the past. During our Saturday creative listing session, we had so much fun making this list. As I am talking about some of my favorite Saturday morning cartoons, people that were participating in the chat were talking about their favorite Saturday morning cartoons. And it was just so much fun to revisit some of those memories of being a little kid. especially depending on how old you are. For me, back then, Saturday morning cartoons, you could only watch cartoons on Saturday mornings because those are the only times they aired. You also only had 3 channels to try to watch your cartoons from. So not only is your list of cartoons telling a story, but the time back then also is part of that story. Another idea is a packing list. So if you are traveling and you often make packing lists, why not make a list and decorate it about the things that you are packing? That list definitely changes based on the different places that you're going and certainly the time in your life. If you have young kids, the things that you're packing are probably very different than if you are going on a solo trip or going on a trip with friends later in your life. Are you familiar with the term bucket list? Bucket list originally came about as a list of things that you would like to do before you, quote unquote, kick the bucket. I did a list very early in the pandemic, basically a weekend, March 23rd of 2020, about the things that I would like to do and that my husband would like to do and our son Sam would like to do. He had to come home from college during the pandemic. Now, we had no idea at that time how long that would last, but as everyone was sheltering in place and not really seeing other people, we talked about it one night at dinner, and I made a list of things that we wanted to do during the pandemic, a bucket list, so to speak. And many of those we did. We had on there watch a marathon of The Godfathers, or The Godfather, The Godfather Marathon, one of my husband's favorite movie series of all time. We wanted to learn how to play pickleball. My husband wanted to mountain bike more. We wanted to go hiking. Sam, our son, wanted to go backcountry skiing. So just some things about that point in time and things that we wanted to do. An interesting thing on that list, talk about telling a story. Way back in the pandemic, Zoom, that so many of us are familiar with now, the platform where you can basically meet in person, but not in person, right? The video conferencing platform. That was so new. One of the things that I had on my bucket list was to understand what that was and how to use it. So whether your list is something that you want to do in the near future, maybe you have a summer bucket list, maybe you have a longer term bucket list of literally things that you'd love to do before you die, a travel bucket list, whatever it may be, make a list of things that you would like to do at some point. I think most lists that people are familiar with doing are to-do lists. You know what? Why not make a to-do list and add it as part of your storytelling? Maybe you have a list of things that you would like to make. Maybe you've been keeping that in your head. Why not write it down? It tells a story. Maybe books that you'd like to read, movies that you'd like to watch, recipes that you would like to make. A to-do list is a very easy and approachable type list to get started with. Back in August of 2020, I did my first list that I called About Last Month. We are now 5 years in, so I can say that I have 60 of these lists. The whole concept behind About Last Month is you are just making a list of what happened during the prior month. So on Saturdays, typically the first Saturday of a new month, we sit down and we do an About Last Month list. I add photos because I like to add photos. You don't have to add photos to a list like that. And then literally make a run-on list of things that happened. Could be things that I did, things that people in my family did. Going back to the concept of you do you. You get to decide what is on your About Last Month list. You might also call it a month in review list. But what makes that type of list, I think, so approachable and so powerful is that you're basically doing the same thing every month. You're telling a story, but you're telling it in list format. You don't even really have to think about the story you're telling because it is of the things that actually happened in your life. If you know that is a list that you are planning on making every month going forward, then throughout the month, just start making a list on your phone or on a little piece of scratch paper in a notebook of the different things that happen, so that when you are ready to sit down and create that list, you have everything you need right at your fingertips. The beauty of that, as I mentioned, I have 60 months documented. So 12 months, 5 years, right? I can go back and look at any one of those given months and know exactly what happened during the month. That is a very easy list to get started with, because you can start it at any time. You don't have to wait to the start of a new year to start that. If you are watching this in the middle of the month, start just making a mental note of the different things that have happened that month and commit to sit down at the start of a new month and do your about last month list. What a Day is another great list to get started with, because once again, it does not require you to start at any specific time. With the What a Day lists, it's typically a list I do once a month where I just pick any random day during the month and I make a list of the things I did that day. Talk about a time capsule. If I had been making a What a Day list back when I was in college, what would be on my list back then is very different from what would be on my What a Day list now. Same thing when I was a young mom. The things on my What a Day list back then would be so different from what would be on my list now. Think about it. If you had the benefit of having a list from a family member, say a mother or a grandmother, if I had a list of my grandmothers that she had made of the things that she did on any given day in 1950, wouldn't that be amazing to see and read? Likewise for my mother, mid-70s. It would just be so neat to have something like that to be able to look back on. So we can't move backwards in the future. We can't move backwards in the past, right? But we can start today so our future selves can look back on today as we're getting started and be so thankful that we did. Another really easy list topic to get started with is what you're looking forward to. You could be doing this list, things you're looking forward to this year, things you're looking forward to next year, things you're looking forward to this summer, this fall, this winter, this Christmas, this week, next week, what have you. Basically, it is a way to look forward, right? And don't get caught up in having big things to look forward to. Maybe you're not looking forward to a trip to go around the world because you don't have a trip planned to go around the world. Doesn't mean that you can't make a list of things that you're looking forward to. Maybe you love fresh fruit and vegetables, and the season for fresh fruits and vegetables is coming up. Add that to your list. Maybe you're an avid reader. Maybe you love Colleen Hoover, the author. Maybe one of her movies is coming out, or maybe she's coming out with a new book. That could be something that you are looking forward to. A new series, another season in a new series, anything like that. So if you are looking at starting with a list of things you're looking forward to, once again, don't get too caught up in having to feel like you have big things to look forward to. Always things that we can look forward to, big or small. What it all boils down to is this. Pick a list, pick any list, and as Nike is famous for saying, just do it. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter what you start with. Just pick a list and do it. I think you'll find that as soon as you pick a list and do your first list, you will be hooked and ready to continue listing. We did this list in June of 2021. The topic, what we're known for. So in this particular list, I listed the things that our state is known for. I live in the state of Utah. I've lived here since 4th grade. And as with most states, we have some pretty quirky things that we're known for, and I thought it might be fun to make a list about those. Things like green Jell-O. I read somewhere once that Utah has the highest consumption of Jell-O per capita than any other country or city or state, or I don't know, whatever it was. But basically, apparently, we really like Jell-O here in Utah. Another one is our love for fry sauce. And if you have never had fry sauce, oh my goodness, You mix ketchup and mayonnaise together and dip your French fries in it, and it is amazing. Another thing, we were the host of the 2002 Winter Olympics. So this is a fun list to capture things that maybe your family is known for, your hometown is known for, your state is known for, and so forth. You're looking at two handwritten recipes here. The one on the left is a handwritten recipe of my mother-in-law's famous German pancakes. And on the right is a recipe of my mother's famous Caesar salad dressing. When you look at these recipes, they are very well used, very well worn. They are stained with oil from the German pancakes, from anchovy paste from the Caesar salad dressing. But both of these recipes also tell a story. And if you think about your creative lists, similar to recipes, your lists, especially if they are in your handwriting, can mean so much to someone down the road. These lists are made in my mother-in-law's handwriting and my mother's beautiful cursive. I am so happy to have these little pieces of them. So as we've talked about before, you can't go back in time and recreate those Christmas lists that your maybe your children or grandchildren were handwriting. You can't go back in time and recreate. Well, actually, you could recreate, but you can't go back in time and make some of these lists that pertain to a particular point in time. But, and this is the big caveat, but you can start now. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You can start now. Start now. Just start. Like Nike says, just do it. You do you. You pick the list that you want to start with, and you just start. I want to make a plug for writing in your own handwriting. As I mentioned, here I have my mother-in-law's handwriting and my mother's handwriting, very much a piece of them. I hear often that people don't want to use their own handwriting when they are journaling or when they are making lists, but it is such a part of you. And if you are fortunate enough to have handwritten recipes or handwritten lists like you see here, they're very much a part of you. So I'm going to say get over it. Get over it. Use your own handwriting, because that is really your voice, right? That is your voice. And some point down the road, someone will like to see your list in your voice. When you think about it, we all have a story to tell. Sometimes feeling like we have to be Ernest Hemingway to write down and tell our story prevents us from doing it. It prevents us from telling our story. The beauty of making lists and creative list making is that you don't have to be Ernest Hemingway, right? You don't have to be Ernest Hemingway. You don't have to be a professional author. You can make a list, and making a list is one of the easiest ways that you can sit down and tell your own story. I always like to say, make the list, tell your story, you won't regret it. I mentioned at the beginning of class that fateful first Saturday in the pandemic where I recorded an intro to Traveler's Notebooks class and put it up on my YouTube channel. Ever since then, more than 5 years now, we are still on YouTube, most oftentimes on Saturdays if I'm not traveling, and we are doing our creative listing. I want to invite you to join us on a Saturday. It's free. You can always find the listing schedule on the Lael by Mail Facebook page, on the Lael by Mail Facebook group, on my website, laelbymail.com, under blog, where we are getting together, taking a couple of creative listing prompts. We are building the community. We are enjoying playing with products. We are enjoying reminiscing as we are list making. On my YouTube channel, you have 5 years, and this is as of today, as I'm filming this in June 2025, you have 5 years, more than 5 years worth of content, worth of videos where we are making creative lists. So if you want to pause the video, I have put a QR code up on the screen. You can open up your camera on your phone and place your camera over that QR code, it will take you to my YouTube channel. You'll also see the URL for my YouTube channel there, youtube.com/LaelByMail. I have also put a link to that particular playlist of all of those creative listing sessions in the description box of the video down below. To help you get started, I've put together a creative listing getting started kit. As part of that kit, it includes the Listing with Lael Idea Book Volume 1, a pair of lined Traveler's Notebook inserts, my List Builder Bullets and More stamp set, a stamping stylus, and a 13 by 13 craft storage pouch. So let's take a quick look at those items in the kit. I have included a link in the description box of the video down below for you to purchase that if you're interested. Volume 1 of the Listing with Lael Idea Book is the first item included in that kit. That is an idea book from our list created during the years of 2021 and 22 of the pandemic. There are more than 300 lists in that idea book. As part of that, you have photos of the lists. You also have a link to that list. It will take you to the YouTube video where you can watch as I made that list step by step. As you purchase the Getting Started kit, you also receive an email with a link to download that Listing with Lael idea book. In that download, as you download each list, the URL or the website, the web page that it takes you to watch that particular video, that link is a hot link, meaning if you click on that link, it will take you directly to the video. And then below that in the idea book, it gives you a timestamp. So it tells you exactly where to fast forward in the video so you can watch that particular list being made real time, quote unquote, as I made the list. That list or that book, as I mentioned, has full of all kinds of content, but that hyperlink in the digital format of the book that you receive makes it incredibly easy to go and watch any of the lists being created that you'd like to watch. The second item, or I should say items, included in that Getting Started kit is a pair of standard wide lined Traveler's Notebook inserts. Traveler's Notebook is what I use for all of my list making. So you have a combination or pair of two lined inserts. Standard wide size is 5 inches wide by 8 1/4 inches tall. And that's the size that I use in all of my Traveler's Notebooks. So you have those two included in the starter kit as well. Next up, you have my Bullets and More stamp set and the stamping stylus. The Bullets and More stamp set is one of the very first stamps that I released probably 4 years ago at this point. That is a combination of number stamps and small icon stamps, which are perfect for both your numbered lists as well as your what I like to call run-on lists, where you're just making a run-on list and then adding bullets or icons in between each of those items on your run-on list. Now, those stamps are very small. And so the kit also includes my stamping stylus. Stamping stylus is a long cylindrical stamping block that you put your little bullet stamp on the end of. Because it is a longer cylindrical circle, stamping block, it makes it very easy for you to stamp with such a small stamp. The Getting Started kit is then all put together and housed in one of my Lael by Mail 13 by 13 craft storage pouches. You can see these are available in a number of different sizes. Most recently, there is a new addition. There is a 9 by 12 size as well. But the Getting Started kit is packaged in that 13 by 13 zippered craft storage pouch. Very nice, high quality, just a great place to kind of keep all of your supplies together. All right, friends, so there you have it. I hope that through this class, you have found your will and desire to get started in creative listing. Again, doesn't matter where you start, pick a list and start. One of my favorite sayings throughout this whole process when I talk to people about listing is this: make the list, tell your story, you won't regret it. Remember, you can't go back in time and start, but you can certainly start today. And what better day to get started than today? Thanks for joining me, friends. As a reminder, in the description box of the video down below, you have a link to that Getting Started kit and a number of other links to help you get started on your creative listing journey. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.